Ever thought of working in the medical device industry, or are you in the industry and want to understand how to progress your career? Welcome everyone to our podcast, Our Medtech Lives, in which we interview veterans of the medical device industry and learn about their career journeys, what they're proud of achieving, what were their challenges and what they had to overcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate your thoughts and comments on today's episode or future questions and topics you'd like us to address. We are your hosts,
Silke Riemer
and Kashi Krem. Today we're honored to welcome a recruiter, Stan Kalinin. Stan draws on an extensive track record, more than 14 years of search and executive team building experience. In the last 7 years, he's spent it in the medical device industry executive recruitment area, working at an international life sciences recruitment agency, Skills Alliance, and a recognized executive search firm, Pedersen and Partners. He's also the host of Medtech Opinion Leader and supporting the growth of Medtech industry and creating insightful stories with key market executives forging alternative narrative about the sector, current and future trends. So definitely check out Medtech Opinion Leader. So without further ado, welcome to Our Medtech Lives, Stan.
Welcome, Stan, also from my side. Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure. I'm quite honored actually to be on Our Medtech Lives. I watch your episodes, of course, and I find them very informative, and you always can learn something new. So really an honor, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to comment before we start that clearly in Sweden it's much darker than it is in Switzerland, because you guys seem to be still very
No, we have better light.
I think we have just better lightning. Yes, exactly. So
it's not as dark as it looks like I'm sitting in a dungeon somewhere, which my wife would probably prefer.
Maybe you didn't pay the bills, so.
Exactly.
Stan, let's start with the topic of today. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path and why you are so passionate about recruitment?
it's a very good question, actually. Why passionate about recruitment? I think passionate about recruitment for life-saving technologies. So I think recruitment always goes hand in hand with a specific industry expertise. So you can't just, let's say, think of recruitment without having a specific domain you are specialized in.
Mm-hmm.
So as Cash already introduced me, so I spent more than 14 years in professional search and executive search settings. I have been very fortunate to work for some fascinating companies in the industry, and started my career from pharmaceutical clinical research, actually. So I think that specific experience certainly introduced me to life sciences sector overall and build up my understanding of the therapeutic areas. Well, mind you saying that, it was back nearly 13 years ago. So it was a completely different landscape for life sciences industry overall, I think. But over the years, I obviously had experience working with semiconductors company, with clean tech, renewable financing, and 7 years ago, I re-entered the market of life sciences, and specifically Medtech. And it still is probably one of the best decisions I actually made in my career. And that's why, obviously, we still have this conversation. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yes.
And how do you think, Stan, if someone wants to start in the medtech industry, how can he or she do it? And what are the skills you are looking for when hiring someone?
I think it's a great question. And we need to look at medtech industry first. So it's a very complex sector. It has so many areas, so many therapeutic areas, so many technologies, and so many classes of devices. So that being said, it's also an industry that really likes entrepreneurs and pioneers. So professionals who actually want to change something about this role to make it better. Now, you probably both know that a vast majority of medtech companies have a mission. So, mission to save patients' lives. That's why I think talent who enters this particular marketplace has a very specific reason why they want to do. So they might come from the hospitals, HCP settings. They might be nurses, ex-nurses, physicians, sometimes even surgeons, and you also have professionals coming from pharma. You have professionals coming from other industries, especially in the commercial area. I have witnessed some very interesting stories. Just to give you a good example, I've actually had experience working with candidates coming from printing industry who were sales, who were in sales for printing. So you probably not the one you primarily associate with the healthcare or with medical devices overall, but they had unique consultative selling experience back in the time, and they also were very strong in terms of selling those industrial business, and had very strong financial acumen how to sell expensive machinery like that to the businesses in the bulk. And I think the company that actually took on board those sales representatives who actually managed to grow their career internally, they will specialize in pathology, cancer diagnostic pathology, and that actually kind of opened up my perspective as a recruiter, because you witness that it's also about soft skills, not just hard skills. And as long as professionals have the desire and they really would love to actually help patients and save lives, I always say medtech is about that. You know, if you are a mission-driven person, then it's definitely an industry for you.
One question I get asked, and by HCPs you mean healthcare professionals, right?
Yes.
So one question, I mean, people I've talked to are not in the industry, and I talk about what I do, and I remember talking to someone in cybersecurity and telling him, hey, you should join our industry, and him telling me, yeah, but I don't know anything about biology or medicine or diseases or anything like that. I mean, do you find that's essential, or tell us a little bit about how much of an expertise you're looking at in those areas?
I'd say if somebody has very strong cybersecurity or information technology background, they, for example, have strong enterprises ERP system experience, like with SAP or with similar sort of ERP systems. They don't necessarily need to come from another medtech organization. It's still a very young industry, cybersecurity as well. I think it's evolving, and what candidates could be fascinated within medtech, because it's so much about technology. And it's also about interconnecting information technology with the devices. You've got robotics, you've got telesurgery. So cybersecurity will be a growing domain in medtech. So they could be really attracted by that. So you probably need to highlight them the bigger picture, like, really draw the line, how exactly there will be a growth, what will be the growth opportunity for them in the long run of their career. And I think it will work.
I think I agree with you. I think I've seen people who are coming with finance skills, or they're coming with logistics skills, and it's a company, right? It needs all that infrastructure, back office that you need. Do you need to know how a hip implant goes in, or how you do a cardiac valve, or how you place a stent? No, I think big companies will teach you that. Right. I mean, if you're back office, you probably just need an understanding of what the business does. But if you're front office, i.e. you're in sales or you're marketing, the larger companies will actually teach you the science part of it, right?
And this is the same if you change within the industry, right? When you start in cardiac and later you move to ophthalmology, they will teach you as well. You don't know how this works, right? It's always something new when you change jobs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're in finance and they'll say, well, this is how government healthcare, hospitals pay, this is how they accept goods, this is how they pay for goods, this is the timeline to expect, all that is pretty quick and easy to learn. So you don't need to worry about the fact that you don't know, the medical side to be in a medical company.
You probably need to have very strong values
Yeah,
yourself as a person,
very
right?
important.
And I think this is what some of the companies will be looking for.
Mm,
However, sometimes I also notice that certain areas, certain therapeutic areas, they demand more hard skills than the others.
yeah,
And you rightfully mentioned about clinical training specialists, sales representative, being able to perform the surgery alongside the OP professionals. So I guess it really depends on the company and how big they are.
yeah,
I always like to remind professionals who enter the industry that vast majority of the players, approximately 75 to 80%, and in some countries like in Germany, could be up to 90%, the businesses are SMEs.
yes,
So small to medium sized enterprises.
yes,
Now that creates a certain level of competitiveness sometimes, and therefore companies might be more eager to deploy professionals, actually asking support from the headhunters community to bring more skilled candidates and talented individuals within the specific domain, and they are not really always looking to provide with the effective training. Now that's not everywhere.
yeah,
Uh, I just believe if they want to stay super competitive, they probably will look at talent who already possess some of the
yes.
skills, hard skills and soft skills
Yeah.
from the sector where they serve the patients.
And it occurs to me that the flip side of the coin is also true. If you're a former medical professional joining the industry and you're going into, let's say, a sales role, probably you're not a very knowledgeable about sales skills. But that again, a big company will teach you that side of things, right? So both sides of the
100%.
coin can apply. And I think
100%.
when you do your consulting with companies, I suppose you have these conversations as to, what is it you're trying to achieve, and then you go looking for the right people for them, right?
Absolutely. I think you also nowadays things have changed
Okay.
dramatically since COVID-19, and companies do look for transferable skill sets,
Okay.
and they are not setting in stone, right? We just need to get professionals from our competitors. So we also can well look at candidates coming from other related industries. But I also believe that industry trend is growing in the artificial intelligence format, new information technology, innovative
Hmm.
services, apps are coming along. So professionals with the strong technology, IT acumen would be highly in demand. And as a result, professional who is, for example, has been selling software as an application service
Yeah.
for the healthcare providers could be an asset for some of the medtech companies who will be willing to launch some new products internally, and they will be interested to learn how to do that. So it's very unique marketplace, and I
Yeah.
think the reason that it's so vibrant is that it could attract a lot of different professionals and a lot
Yeah.
of different talent.
And I'm going to ask one question now, let Silke jump in, but it's relatively well paid, right, compared to other industries.
It
So
is very well paid, yes,
yeah, so
indeed.
that's another good attractive reason.
It's a very attractive proposition,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
not just altruistic, but you actually do get paid well. Silke, please.
Stan, I guess lots of people contact you every day. Can you share some tips and tricks how we grab your attention as a recruiter and stand out as a candidate?
I always say sometimes it could be slightly more complicated to reach out to the headhunter. They normally reach you. Why? Because
Mm-hmm.
they have the mandate that they work on. If they don't have the mandates, then for them, kind of, they still need to be able to serve the needs of their clients. And what clients want, not necessarily is what candidates could offer. But I think good headhunters probably, that's something to mention. They would love to build a relationship anyhow, so they would love to know you. And I always say you need to have a proper tete-a-tete, with the candidate in order to understand, what their values are, what they could bring to the table. So I think it's essential to look for headhunters coming from an industry. They could be life sciences generalists. They could be specializing in the specific market domain. As long as they have some connection to the industry where you're in, I think this is advisable to build the relationship continuously and to reach out to them. Absolutely.
How do I recognize a good recruiter? Because now, when I started in the industry, there were a few you knew. But today there are so many companies recruiting only for Medtech, right? It's hard to differentiate, especially when you are a hiring manager. The moment you post a job on LinkedIn, you have, I don't know how many recruiters contacting you and asking if they can support your jobs, your hiring.
Look, it's still a sales job. Recruitment is about selling, but it's about consultative selling, and you need to look for professionals who have portrayed their transactional experience, maybe by giving the references. I usually say recommendation and just doing the cross-check with, always look at who they're connected with. And you can ask, let's say, opinion of your peer from an industry about this particular individual recruitment consultant. But you probably, having worked in the industry enough, you can spot good people from. So typically they're going to have some references, and they're going to have a very good. Nowadays they're going to have some sort of professional digital fellowship and different. Digital content posted maybe, or they are advocating for an industry. I normally look at some of the US headhunters. I think there are some professionals who took it to the next level. Like Joe Mullings, for example, or Giovanni Laricella. They obviously are at probably the top level of what medtech headhunting should be. So perhaps, if you look at them as a good example, and then you essentially try to look for the same traits in headhunters while you're having the conversation with them, you could easily discover if it's worth your time or not. So that's kind of an advice. So look for the best of the best, and then try to compare them to the others, let's say, more European-based headhunters.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the word you hit on, consultative selling, is really important, right? And I know that the ones that the headhunters that I like to work with, and Joe Mullings, I agree, is at the top level, and is a super nice guy as well. And people should check out his podcasts. But also the people that I tend to work with in terms of when I'm looking for a job or when I'm recruiting are those that stay in touch with me when I'm not looking for someone, and I'm not those who are actually interested in my business and what I do and where I'm at, and we'll have a call, we'll have a catch up, and I'll explain where the business is at. They can give me some insights from their side, what's happening in the industry. Those guys who take the time and energy to stay in touch with you are, the ones that I value for sure. Right? It's essentially a partnership, right?
Yes.
And finding the right talent, is so important. It can make or break a manager and a business. So being able to work with people who understand you, the business, that doesn't happen in one phone call. And the people you only hear about when you post a job, you're going to give them it's pretty significant commission, right? Are you just going to hand that over to someone who then you never hear about from again, right? Until you're recruiting again.
I'm more concerned about these recruiting companies where you first talk to a call center. So where they do the pre-selection, and sometimes I have the feeling, because they don't understand the job and the market, you never know if they let you through or not. Because I really like to talk to the recruiter, him or herself, right? and not to young professionals who do the callings.
The vetting.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's a common practice for some headhunting agencies. Mind you saying that, even if they are hiring the graduate recruiters, that's what it's called, as long as the company could facilitate and provide with very effective training, and sometimes they do, they could be still very helpful. So what they need to have is an attitude, and they need to have the values. So coming back to you with the feedback, not ghosting you. I wouldn't discount young individuals because they need to learn. They need to also learn on the job, and I think they are in the job for a reason. But of course, you don't want to waste your time either, and you want to make sure that this company that, for example, this person is calling from has some reputation, and you need to look at the combination of both, really. So it's a consultant and the company and the business. So other than that, of course, it's very much about kissing the frogs, I have to say.
You just mentioned ghosting. I mean, this was a word we used to know from dating, but now you read it more and more on LinkedIn in connection with recruiting. Why is it so common now that you get ghosted, even after one or two steps, not at the beginning, even later in the process?
Typically, companies, they don't provide with the feedback themselves. So there are so many applicants. There are so many people involved in the hiring process. Again, depends on the organization. So if it's a big one, if it's a small, medium size. And right now I'm purely talking about medical technology market. I'm not talking about any other market. So ghosting appears because there is miscommunication in some parts of the process of the hiring process in any of those links. And there are at least 5. So there is recruiter, there is a HR, there is a TA, there is the hiring manager, there is a decision maker, and then someone approves the budget, and then you've got maybe procurement department who's also looking into the contract. So the bigger the size of the organization, the more roadblocks you're going to hit, and the more gatekeepers you are going to face. And as a result, sometimes feedback just doesn't get to the recruiter. I mean, because they're not in the top of the chain, obviously. So, and they don't know what to say to you. That's why I think it's important for the recruiters to be at least nice to professionals and just say, I don't have it. So if I don't have feedback, but also you look at the process and you can be very smart and diplomatic about what is going on. You don't have to say there are some other candidates. Obviously, there are always other candidates. And right now, there are 100+ applicants on LinkedIn for each individual job that you see within the Medtech environment. But I always say, don't look at the number, because this number does not necessarily reflect the quality. The quality aspect will always be dominant in the quantitative recruitment anyway, because you need one person, you need one candidate. I also see that hiring managers, when they make their strategic decisions right now, they have a tendency to go back to people that worked with them in the past, and they want specifically those people because they can trust them. Because essentially, you really need to compete for customers, and they want to get the best soldiers that they know of in the market, and they attract them to their teams and trying to work with people who they know.
Okay, so we talked about somebody who's not in the industry who would like to get in the industry.
Yes.
Let's say I'm in the industry, so I'm a salesperson, or I'm a marketing person, or even I'm a project manager. But I want to move up in my career. Now I'm thinking about, I'd love to manage a department. I'd like to manage some people, So I come to you and I say, hey, Stan, help me. What should I be thinking about? What should I be doing and what should I put on my CV? How do I make myself attractive for more advanced roles? What would you say there?
Well, I'd say the first question I would ask, can you do that in your current job?
Okay.
Right. Do you really have to make a move, or you just need to wait for a promotion to come? Now, some professionals can argue that I want to speed up the career progress and I want to be a leader way faster. But I would say becoming a leader or becoming a manager, it's certainly not just about the paycheck. You also must have some traits of a leader. And it starts from an attitude.
Right.
I have witnessed that some companies, they do have a tendency in Medtech to promote professionals who were sales reps in the beginning and they become sales managers or even sales directors after serving within the company for 12 years.
Yeah.
It's very subjective, but definitely start to work on your attitude.
Okay.
And you need to have a career vision and a strategy. Okay. So it's a long-term goal and a long-term objective in some instances, and you really need to look at how you're going to get to the destination. So you would have to really break it down into the points where you really have to stop and accomplish a certain level of achievement. I mean, it could be an extra leadership course.
Okay.
It's also maybe an education master's degree that you're currently pursuing, or you are actually working on your networking abilities and you are networking internally. I think it's essential to be an internal advocate for helping others. You really need to go above and beyond and go extra mile in your daily tasks. So you excel in something yourself, and then you have no problem to not just to highlight it to the rest of the crowd, but to pass this information, pass this knowledge, to share. And you really need to have a lot of different sets of skills as a leader to become where you want to be, to become a manager or a director.
It's a good point, because just because you're good at selling doesn't mean you'll be good at managing people, right? It's a different skill set.
It's a completely different skill set.
Do you think it's easier to become promoted in your company? Because I think it's quite difficult to apply for a higher hierarchy job in another company where they don't know you.
Let's look at Medtech as the whole in a holistic way. So we need to look at the industry, and let's just say we need to look at the industry from the European standpoint, because in the United States, the situation could be slightly different in comparison to the European Union. So, like I mentioned, the vast majority of the companies are SMEs. As a result, you have 30, 50-man companies out there. So if you become a sales rep in one of those companies, then most likely it will take you 12 to 15 years before you're going to become a sales director. So you need to have, let's say, a certain cycle, to go through before you can actually build the trust. You need to be extraordinary. You need to be loyal. You need to really breathe and live the values of the company. This can happen. Now, are you ready and prepared to invest 12 to 15 years of your life into a specific enterprise? You might be, because you like the leadership team, or you really like the products. You think the products are really good. However, when we look at the industry from the holistic standpoint, we also see that a lot of innovation is coming from abroad. It's coming from nowadays obviously from the US market, from China, from all different parts of the world. And those companies, they start to build teams as well. I know that's what happened over the last 15 years in the European industry. So you have companies, the bigger cohort, I think they already reached a certain level of maturity. I think it will be harder to get promoted that easily than in comparison to what it used to be before. So your logical next step, and for a lot of candidates, will be to look at the startups companies or SMEs who might be willing to deploy your knowledge. If you, let's say, you work for one of those big corporates, and then you come with this wealth of knowledge and experience, and you can be promoted. So that's obviously your strategy if you want to get promoted slightly faster. And some of the candidates, they pursue this road. But in Medtech, one thing you want to be aware of is, I don't want to sell the Me Too products. I want to make sure that I really provide not just patient-centric approach. It's just not about the mission, but the product needs to be really good. It needs to be reimbursed. It needs to be good. It needs to save lives, get the CE mark and have the clinical evidence in place, especially now, MDR. You can't really operate even as a sales manager if you don't have all of those. So the companies need to fulfill so many different strategies. Therefore, that's why it's so difficult right now, because there are so many different things that don't add up. And how do you get promoted? So that's a good question, and it's a puzzle. And I think you need even more time, and you really need to be clever and analytical. You need to do your own analysis and strategy. And the third, you need to make sure that you stick to the right products that can add more value.
Definitely agree with you that, smaller but fast-moving companies or fast-moving divisions within a bigger company, your career is gonna move faster, right? If that department starts to grow
True, yes.
very rapidly, then and you're in early, you're going to be. So that's where the idea of being strategic and choosing where you want to go is very important, right? So you've mapped out, here are the skills I need to have, right? Then you need to do a gap analysis, maybe talk to some colleagues, talk to some friends who know you and say, am I a good manager? Do I have these skill sets? Where do I have some maybe blind spots in myself? And then you start to plug those. You mentioned networking. How important is networking, and how should someone go about networking?
I think networking been widely misunderstood. That networking is about, let me build connection on LinkedIn and let me have a conversation with someone. That's not networking. No. I think networking is you have done a great job for someone in the past and you keep building the relationship. And you keep meeting this person. That's networking. It's staying in contact because you need to have your core network. Like, people you've met physically, you work with them, they know you, they're the ones who most likely would want to help you out when you are in need, or they would want to employ you when you want to be employed by this or that organization. So that's what it means by networking. To build up the new network, it needs to start from your vision, maybe the same course, maybe some common interests. So it's almost like building a good relationship with someone else. So you need to have some common ground before you start networking. And I believe that you don't always need to know everyone, but in this case, you really need to outline what you know and the purpose of the networking opportunity and why you want to continuously build this relationship, let's say. So you need to have the foundation of what I know. Why do I want to deal with this person? Why does this person want to deal with me? I think this is probably the better, more correct version of your question. So why does this person want to networking with me? I mean, what's my value? I mean, why is it interesting for them? And
let
me finish taking some notes. I'm going to.
Are there some events or organizations you would recommend for networking? Or is it just your one-to-one contact you mentioned?
I think generally there are plenty of great events in Medtech. I think there are just so many, but they serve the different purposes, right? I mean, it depends which therapeutic area you're in. I mean, if you're from cardiology, then most likely you don't want to go to ophthalmic events. Or if you're in orthopedics, you don't want to go to, I don't know, to ICU devices, because what's the point? Everything is very therapeutically driven, as very sector driven. So if you are sticking to one, and especially at the later stage of your career, I think if you're in robotics, you kind of want to stick to that. Because if you start, let's say, deviating from one place to another, you can still classify yourself maybe as a capital sales leader. That definitely works. But if you really go from robotics to, I don't know, to aesthetics devices, then it might raise the question. I mean, why? What was the reason? If you have a good foundation behind it, great, do it. But you need to know
both.
you have the foundation. There was something why you decided to do it. So, and if you have this foundation, you absolutely can go, and you should.
So is it for you? Is it like, you talk to a number of candidates, but you fall in love, you know which one it is. The minute they're on the line, you're like, yes, this is the one that's going to get the job. Do you ever have that feeling, or is it a drawn out analytical process?
You never know.
Just like love, you never know, right?
You never know. It's like you can really
Yeah,
you can minimize the odds, right? So
yeah,
because you ask the right questions, you've
yeah,
met people, you're meeting them via Teams at least, or you meet them face to face on the client. You go out of your comfort zone of just making a phone call and you try to meet with a customer and see the hiring manager personally, then
yeah,
maybe you might get a better feeling. But even though you can't really, you don't know, because there are always elements that go beyond your control as a headhunter. So
yeah,
you can always introduce professionals, you introduce in the best manner, you provide the hiring manager with a great assessment report. But at the end of the day, they need to like this person.
yeah.
And there are
Maybe
so
the
many.
hiring manager is falling in love with the other one. You never know.
You never know. It happened. I mean,
Yeah,
you'll be
Yeah.
surprised. I mean, that's why I no longer listen to my gut feeling, because
yeah,
in the past, you have a gut feeling that it's definitely working out. This is the candidate based
yeah,
on paper, based on communication skills.
yeah,
But there is always something.
yeah.
You need to have a very pragmatic and cold-headed approach.
Okay.
But Stan, so far we talked about being a sales rep, becoming a manager, becoming a director. It's all in the same, right? Maybe sales. But is this industry also open for people taking a career change? Maybe I'm a sales rep, but I want to go to marketing. Is this open for this?
Well, it's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons, because headhunters, we usually ask to bring somebody with the same experience. It's a sales manager, they want to see the sales manager. But because we analyze a lot of profiles on LinkedIn, obviously this is part of the job.
Yeah,
You witness that sometimes professionals make those moves 100%.
right.
So it's not always set in stone. If you are, for example, a marketing manager, that you you're always going to be a marketing manager. You probably can still deviate to some other departments. Now, most likely you will not deviate to R&D. I'm not going to lie. So if you're in marketing or sales, highly
Yeah,
unlikely you will be in the research and development department,
yeah,
but or an IT or software. But
yeah,
you obviously can look for paths, which have the correlation to commercial functional role. And
yeah,
sometimes companies, they also have new strategies coming along, like an omni-channel strategy, and they need someone who used to be in marketing, and omni-channel is kind of about marketing, but it's very
yeah,
different. So this person would be like a product manager for omni-channel strategy. So is it marketing? To an extent, yes, it's part of the team, part of the process, but is it different? Absolutely. So
yeah,
you need to look at related departments, because it just will be easier for you to transfer your knowledge at a faster pace. However, I also think if you really completely want to change your department, you also can do that by learning, by just having a strong career goal, purpose, strategy. Maybe you hate sales
yeah,
completely. Then I always advise go to training. Training
yeah.
is better.
Training, good. Yeah,
So training is beautiful. I mean, it's not about it's still selling. It's just a completely different type of selling. It's helping surgeons, physicians, depends on what sort of products you have. But there are definitely opportunities.
yeah,
And you probably need some advice. If you're in the beginning of your career, you need some mentorship.
yeah,
Always. You need a mentor.
yeah,
Once you are grown up and when you're an executive, I think you just want to look at some of your peers and examples, what they've done. And, I think it's more about the feeling, those soft skills you need to have. Let's say what worked for them and why, from the personality, from the character standpoint, because I think right now companies are looking into that at soft skills way more than they used to.
ah,
It's a
Okay.
hugely differentiating factor. So yeah, I think there are so many different angles of attack, so many things to consider, but always have someone you can ask an advice.
yeah. That's very
I think
important.
it's very important. Yes,
Yeah,
always ask for
both
advice.
Silke and I and our friends who ran the course at St. Gallen, we mentored a lot of the students there over the years to help them get into the business. Very interesting. So Stan, you get to talk to people in so many companies in so many parts of the business. So you have a great overview. Where is all the excitement at the moment? What trends are you seeing that are going to emerge over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Well, first of all, we need to get the MDR for a lot of companies in Europe. I think that's the most
The
exciting topic.
regulatory
But
registration, yes.
I don't think that they're particularly excited about it. But I think the one thing I've learned about medtech, it's a great industry to be in.
Yes.
So it's innovative. In other words, it's not about medtech, I think.
Yeah.
I think there is a huge level of inefficiency in a hospital. And
Okay.
it's quite analog. You've got quite an old-fashioned way how you manage hospitals right now. And the next big thing probably will be to somehow have a medical technology company to address those inefficiencies. I mean, there's only so much you can do if you rely purely on your sales reps. I mean, you
Yeah.
obviously can't. They can push the consultative selling. They can do some, everything, all the effort. But at the end of the day, they're all going to hit the stumbling blocks of the hospitals, inefficiencies of their issues with the supply chain and things, or simply lack of budget in the first place.
Yeah.
So companies that would create frameworks utilizing whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's telesurgery, like in robotics, whether it's a data-driven approach,
Yeah.
they will be the ones who are going to win.
Yeah.
I recently watched a very interesting episode on Bloomberg. It was with J&J CFO, and he spoke about an opportunity to build partnerships with tech companies. So he foresees that medical technology businesses could actually partner with Meta, with Microsoft, with Amazon, with Apple, a lot more frequent and often.
Yes.
And somehow this could also support this transition, because medtech is beautiful. I mean, medtech industry is super innovative.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the robotics, they are performing the surgical procedures better than without them, right? So, however, it's still so complicated to get the data from the surgical robot, because sometimes there is simply no good computers in the hospital. So how are you going to do that? And companies who really can address the holistic problems of medtech industry, they will be the most, they will be the winners. And I'm quite excited about blood pressure monitoring and about hypertension devices, for example. Now, this is not particularly, this is not the industry where everybody goes to, but it has some really, really cool companies in it. And I think that renal denervation therapy is certainly helping the patients with the high blood pressure. And as we know, it's linked to AFib, to the atrial fibrillation. So if you look at the entire, let's say, therapy, you, as a professional in the industry, and you want to look for companies that solve those issues, it's more about making patient-centric approach. So, and really creating the value-added healthcare system. And that's exactly what medtech companies will be focusing on. I think it's more about creating more efficient universe altogether. Like medtech is all about innovation. There's so much innovation that it just needs better framework. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of preventative technologies, because now you have wearables that are measuring your blood pressure,
100%, yeah,
your blood glucose, stuff like that all the time. So there's some great trends that are coming there. The Internet of Things and the AI is really going to revolutionize the medical device industry. So as we
I must say, I'm super impressed by your knowledge about the industry, being a recruiter, because normally they are very superficial in terms of knowledge. How do you keep yourself up to date? Where do you get all this knowledge from?
Well, I have a passion for it. I like it, and I think passion is important. Second, I always say to launch a medtech company is almost the same as to launch a spacecraft. The amount of regulatory and amount of different processes you need to consider, starting from research and development, it's almost like you shooting to the moon, right? And medtech industry is very unique, and I always like to liaise with people, like with Cash, with you, Silke now. So, and what I can say, leaders and executives are happy to talk. They're happy to share information, to actually provide you with a lot of opportunities to learn. I mean, as long as you listen and as long as you're trying to learn from them, I think you can get a lot of valuable insights.
Yeah. Well, Silke tells me that I'm good at talking. I talk a lot, right?
You have all the robotic knowledge from
Yeah,
Cash.
I've
exactly.
learned a lot from you, Cash. I did learn a lot. I mean, we've had different sessions.
Yeah.
We've done a few Q&As.
Yeah.
By now, you obviously gave me a lot of insights and a lot of information. Now, that's where it comes from sometimes, by listening to professionals like you, and you observe it, and you try to self-reflect and understand and analyze it, and there we go. So you have the pattern of the industry, and you can be really consultative
Yes.
and helping people.
But
So I just want to mention that, sorry, Silke, that some of the things you mentioned, they dovetail really nicely with some other episodes we've done. So that how hospitals decide where to spend their money and where to invest. Imran, who did a podcast with us, he talks all about the healthcare economic side of things and that decision-making process. And then in terms of how you self-analyze, you figure out where you want to go next and prepare. Also, the podcast we do with Petra Silke is another really good one to go back and listen to. So I think all these different subjects starting to clip together like a jigsaw puzzle was really exciting.
Then I still have another question. Being curious, you see all of us applying, talking to you, and want to find a new job. What are the common mistakes that you see, not only in young professionals, but also in experienced professionals when they ask you for help or when they look for a new job?
Yeah, good question.
Well, first of all, I don't think you need to look at it from where I've made the mistake. I think when you look for a job, especially in the current market, you want to be a bit more strategic. You just want to sit down and understand, where would I really like to spend the rest of my years as an executive? And you think about the products, you think about the companies that launch those products, you look at the CE markings, for example, if you're based in Europe, because if you're in commercialization department, you obviously want to make sure that one of those companies has the CE mark or is subject to it. So essentially, you need to have a strategy before you launch. So it's more like a project. I looked at the track record of the company they represent. I want to be in this industry. Like, I'm in surgery, I want to go to robotics. Excellent choice. Why do I want to go to robotics? Because there is a lot of momentum right now in the industry, and there are some values I can bring with me. And I outline this. And I say project management is vital because you want to create, let's say, step-by-step communication. So instead of, let's say, pushing your CV right away, you would rather ask about the values, start from how do they see the market, try to build the conversation first, maybe do a bit of research yourself, give it away, and be very specific and strategic, and people would love that.
Yeah.
Now, you're an executive who knows the industry in Europe rather well, how to commercialize the devices. Now, I'm quite confident the CEO of any company in Medtech would want to listen to someone who comes back to them with some sort of interesting material and feedback. They would love to hear and understand how you can be of service, how you can be of help. And I think it's strategy, project management, building, let's say, not immediately expecting the result, and quality over quantity. Don't send out 100 applications.
I think Silke was looking to hear all the mistakes that I've made, Stan, and thank you for not telling her all those mistakes that I've made. So I appreciate it. So Silke, good try, but Stan's zipped up on all my mistakes.
Well, I hardly saw any, but that's all right.
Thank you. You're too kind. See?
All right. So, Stan, when you look back at your past self, What are the 3 things you know now that you wish you had known then?
In the past, when? Let's say before entering the medtech industry, right? So
Oh, you can choose. You can
You can
choose
choose. You
from
can also say
before
when you
and
started your career as a recruiter and now
yeah.
this, I don't remember how many years
Now that
later,
you're
14?
much experienced, yeah.
I'd say try to specialize and become very good in a specific area and stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Second, constantly build your relationship with your network. Like constantly, you have the job, you're in a different domain, keep the relationship ongoing because your network is key when you look for a next assignment, when you look for the client, for a customer, or for general knowledge.
Yeah, and advice.
And the third, always keep learning. Like never give up a free course. Always try to invest time in self-learning. Like YouTube, watch our MedTech lives. There's just
Yeah.
so much inside the material, but there, you can actually self-learn a lot nowadays. There is tons of material out there. Just be strategic about it. Know what you want to learn and keep doing it. Just keep doing it. So I think those 3.
Thank you. And where can people find your material?
On my LinkedIn profile, actually. I mean, I do post a lot, and
Yeah,
I try to keep up my blog with all this information, and I have some, let's say, PDFs for
yeah,
peer-to-peer purposes, but this is a lot more exclusive. So
yeah. I've read some of them. They're super interesting and another place to go to learn. So
that's for the special networking purposes. Let's say you
yes,
always need to have the extra exclusive material so that you can actually
yeah.
share it with your network. So have a think of some, be creative. And I think the 4th would be creative.
Be
Be
creative.
creative. Yes.
Fantastic. Zan, has been so useful and so informative to speak to you and get an insight of what is going on and what is the process that a recruiter in the medical device industry is doing, and how he is best trying to serve the client and also the person being recruited. So appreciate all your knowledge, all your advice that you've given
Thank you.
us today. Thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Stan.
Honor, pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.